And he says he doesn't email either. He's always near people with a phone or an email, and they can always do it for him. And he says he finds cell phones a constant interruption. He finds people who text him as avoidance of people not wanting to talk to him, so he gets upset with that. He said he got rid of his cell phone 4 years ago because he felt like it was a leash. You obviously know why he's not married. And he talks about one of the biggest luxuries that he has enjoyed as a celebrity is closing record stores down. Now listen to this. This is so funny. He says he learned this from Elton John. He'd find a record store he liked, and he'd make an arrangement to close the place, and then he'd go in there with a security guard who would hold up a pillowcase, and he would just get tons of records. And they would fill the pillowcase with records, and he'd obviously buy them all. This way he could shop, without being disturbed. He said he learned that from Elton John. And then he kind of wrapped things up with talking about his radio gig that he had at K-Rock after he replaced Howard Stern. He says that was a big mistake on the part of management. And he goes, they couldn't really rein me in. Not a mistake hiring him, but that they had this impression of him wanting to be sort of like this pop culture guy who was funny with guests. And Dave said he got fired for playing too much ethnic music while doing late-night humor too early in the morning. He says, whenever we brought in porn stars, I actually knew them, which was sort of a dig on Howard, which is kind of funny. And then he says, they wanted me to do commercials for Vermont Care Bears. He goes, I like to promote stuff I use, like cigarettes and sunglasses, which is kind of funny. But he said he's open to doing DJing again on his terms, and he says, my interest in music is diverse but energized. He also said he would be interested in writing a column. And then when Joe told him they were at the 3-hour mark, he says, time flies when you don't know what you're doing. So Dave is just a wizard. I mean, he's part Yoda and part like escape mental patient. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's like a sage, and he's funny. And Dave, what did you make of this interview?
It was exhausting. I mean, just listening to you do the summary, and I think like it was just like 15 minutes.
Right.
I was like, oh man, let's move this along because so basically, if you are like Dave C, Dave number one, and you have a high Dave tolerance, you will love that podcast that David Lee Roth did with Joe Rogan because he is a very interesting guy.
Yeah.
And I actually did listen to the whole thing live, right. Shockingly. Now, if you're like me and you have a low David Lee Roth tolerance, then I would recommend you just listen to the highlights on YouTube to when he does talk about Van Halen, which are far and in between. Joe tried. But after all that, Dave did not talk about what's going on with the band currently, even though a lot of fans were hoping for that. And I give Brett, the king of VH Links, full credit because he called it when he said David Lee Roth will say nothing about what's going on with the band now. So don't get your hopes up. And he was right. He didn't say anything. Because after 3 hours, I was like, oh, nothing. Nothing. So if you're a David Lee Roth fan, great listen. Guy has led and still leads a very exciting life. And it is really very interesting to see how he leads his life. But if you're looking for the typical how I wrote a song, how I get along with the band, what the band's doing, like none of that at all. So very similar to his autobiography he wrote. If you're a fan of that, you'll love the podcast. If you're not, don't bother.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth.
So with that, let's please move on because I really can't flash back to that thing.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. You know what? I commend you, Dave. I can't believe that you made it through because there are times that you have a hard time making it through like full albums and stuff, let alone a 3-hour podcast.
I really, well, I really need to focus.
Yeah.
And, I'm always a fan of less is more. But I did give Dave a chance because you never know what he's going to say. And maybe there's going to be that little tidbit. But after 3 hours, I was sitting there thinking to myself, ooh. I mean, I won't say it was a waste of time because it was really interesting. Yes. It's not like I walked out going, well, there's 3 hours of my life I'll never get back.
Right.
Maybe it was like 2.5.
Yeah.
But I
also give Roth credit for not bashing Sammy. I thought that was a class move.
That is true. Because he has not been like that in the past.
No.
I mean, we've seen him live, and he's bashed Sam.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that he was incredibly diplomatic towards Sam was surprising and impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And he took the high road, and I think he probably might regret some of that stuff. I think he did the right thing there, and kudos to Roth for doing that. So we are on to our next segment.
Thank goodness.
No, our next news item, which is Wolf did another tweet, believe it or not. He gave himself an early birthday present. He got himself one of the Malcolm Young jet replicas. And he says, the second I saw they made a replica of Malcolm Young's jet, I had to get it. AC/DC and Malcolm especially have always been a huge influence on me. And he flashed a picture of the guitar, which they just released. And congratulations to him on that. Speaking of guitars, Eddie Van Halen released a new Wolfgang Standard Exotic Midnight, which is another Wolfgang guitar. This one is a basswood body with a special comfort cut forearm contour for maximum playing with ease. It's designed for a comfortable playability and speed, and it's got a beautiful back finish and with a 12 to 16 inch compound radius, a baked maple wood fingerboard with rolled edges, 22 jumbo frets, and black dot inlays. So what do you think about all this gear, Dave? We'll see if he brings that out on his solo tour, if he absolutely does something like that, and Eddie's putting out more guitars.
I really hope the reason he's getting the guitar is so he can play it on tour. That's really all I care about.
I know.
And I'm not a gear guy, so when you say it has this, that, and the other thing, just like all I hear is it has blah, 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 blah. I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to any gear guys out there.
No,
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome if you could play guitar or any other musical instrument. I just don't have that appreciation.
No,
I just want to hear what the band is doing.
Absolutely. That's for sure. I think that it's great that his company is thriving and releasing these Wolfgang guitars, and I think you should have been doing it years ago. But you also want the music to be paired with it. I think it's important that you pair the music with it. So hopefully, we'll see what happens, but hopefully something's coming. Also, Sammy Hagar released a video for Trust Fund Baby, which I was very disappointed in. It was kind of cheesy and generic. They showed an out-of-control young lady partying it up, and I'm curious as to how this quote-unquote concept is going to work. What did you make of this?
I thought it was typical video, typical Sam.
Yeah.
I wasn't as disappointed as you were because I think my Sam expectations are lower than yours.
Okay, okay.
So my expectations for the video matched my expectations for the song. Okay, fine, typical rocker, But, that's it. I mean, I wasn't expecting Right Now, Part 2.
Right.
I mean, actually, he's already done that, now that I think about that. So, it was all right.
Okay.
It was fine for what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Eddie Van Halen released sneakers. His new sneakers were released. They're like black and white with Eddie kneeling down. It's a shot of him from 1978. Some people were complaining that the way the layout was, that it made Eddie look like he's a left-handed guitar player, because I guess they had to reverse the image to fit the shoe, because you're doing both sides of the shoe. But that's okay. I think that's just for design purposes. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. The sneakers are really cool looking. They're available on the Van Halen store, so vanhalenstore.com. You can check those out. And, Dave, did you see this? Rick James's Give It To Me Baby, mashed with Gimme Shelter. Another mashup that was made on the web, and it contains the Van Halen solo. Hear about it later. Seems like a very hot mix. It blended all the stuff together, and had sort of a 1981 Orlando all over again with the Stones and Van Halen. So what did you make of this creativity?
I loved it. I thought it was a great mashup, and I forget the guy's name who's done that, but he's done quite a few. He's got like 2 or 3 with either a Van Halen song or a Van Halen solo snuck in there. His mashups are better than average. He really layers it nicely and syncs the songs together. So I always look forward to it whenever he's coming out with something new, especially if it has a Van Halen part in it.
It's incredible how things can really work together. It's amazing how that all gets... Yeah. I really enjoy it.
Songs you never would expect, right? Yeah. It's crazy.
It's really good, and it sounds like letter perfect, so it's really good. Well, Dave and I did a little road trip together, and we checked out the show at the Iridium on March 6th with Talus. Billy Sheehan dusted off his band Talus and got them out on the road. Dave came down from Connecticut, and it was a crunch because it was in the middle of the week for both of us for work, but we made the effort, and we went in to see the band at the Iridium, and the announcement came out of nowhere. It was surprising because Billy's always busy with all his different bands, whether it's Winery Dogs or Mr. Big or Sons of Apollo. Well, Mr. Big, we'll get to that in a little bit, is on pause, and Sons of Apollo are off the road right now, and the Winery Dogs haven't started up their tour, so Billy decided to dust off Talus and go for a tear on the road. And let me tell you, we were excited that he did. It was a fantastic show. The lineup was similar to what was on his live album, The Talus Years. He had Mark Miller on drums and Phil Naro on vocals. Of course, Billy's on bass. And they had this new gentleman, Kieran. I don't know his last name, but he's on guitar. He was excellent. And they were playing all kinds of Talus songs. Intermounting Flame, as well as Crystal Clear and Lone Rock, and they played the Mr. Big song Had Enough, because I think they demoed that early on, and also Bumblefoot, the guitarist, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, they call him, who is formerly in Guns N' Roses and currently in Sons of Apollo with Billy, made a guest appearance on the last 4 songs, and of course they jammed Shy Boy together, which was a really intense performance, and it was a killer show. Really, for some reason they're near you, go see them. They are phenomenal. Dave, what did you think of the show?
Oh, I love the show. Seeing Talus has always been on my bucket list.
Yep.
And that lineup in particular, I didn't think I'd see that lineup, because that was like Mach 2 of Talus.
Right.
That's the version that you hear on, like you said, on the Talus Years, which was a Billy Sheehan compilation of Talus studio CD and live album. And the live album was called Life Speed on Ice. So if you're a fan of that album, that's the lineup that was pretty much playing when we saw them. And they were like right on. Phil Naro's singing was right on. Mark Miller's drums, I mean, just like a phenomenal hard-hitting drummer. Was really, really good. Really excited to see them playing live. And yeah, they were doing all sorts of stuff. Stuff from the live album, other stuff live that they used to do. If you have bootlegs, stuff that they had demoed that they never released. And I think they even did 1 or 2 new songs. So really just a phenomenally great show. Billy was on fire. I love when Billy plays with Talus because it's really his band. And he just goes nuts and plays that bass hard. I mean, he always does that anyway. But I think he really, really goes for it when he's in Talus. So loved it. Great show. That band was on my bucket list. And like Dave, I would strongly recommend if they actually ever do come to your town, please go see them.
They were fantastic. And also Gary Cherone popped out of the woodwork and jumped on stage with Gene Simmons in the Gene Simmons Band. When they came, I believe it was in Massachusetts, he came on stage with the Demon to take the mic for Strutter, the song Extreme did in the early 90s Kiss tribute album, Kiss My Ass. And he did a killer job because Gary's awesome on the mic. And did you see that, Dave?
I did not see that.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds very cool.
Yeah, it was very cool, and Gary, he was in great vocal condition. Good to see him out there. Sammy Hagar was on the Talkin' Rock with Meltdown podcast. There's also a radio show, I believe. And talking Van Halen again, Dave. He's out there.